Dear students, I am Dr. Timmegowda NR, Department of Chemistry, Government SKSJ Technological Institute, KR Circle, Bengaluru. In this video lecture, I am going to explain the continuation of Engineering Chemistry Module 2, Corrosion and Metal Finishing. In my previous session 2, I explained about the factors which are affecting on rate of corrosion, such as the nature of corrosion product form, the ratio of anodic area and cathodic area, pH of the medium, temperature of the medium, and conductance of the medium. In this session 3, I am going to explain the types of wet corrosion, such as differential metal corrosion, differential aeration corrosion by taking pitting corrosion and waterline corrosion as an examples, and corrosion control methods such as anodizing by taking anodizing of aluminum as an example. So let's go through the types of corrosion, which is already have been discussed in previous session. Depending upon the corrosion medium, the corrosion of metals classified into dry corrosion and wet corrosion. The dry corrosion occur due to direct attack of metals by dry gases present in the atmosphere. It is through chemical reactions. Example, the attack of oxygen and many other corrosive gases such as HCl, H2S, SO2, Cl2, F2, ammonia, etc. with the metal, it forms dry corrosion. A particular example we can consider like tin reacts with chlorine gas. It forms tannic chloride, volatile product, and molybdenum, when it reacts with the oxygen, it forms molybdenum trioxide. So this is about dry corrosion, but it is less common in nature. And as you can see here, we can consider another example like silver when exposed to atmosphere, it get tarnished. That is due to formation of silver sulfide by reacting with sulfur containing compounds in the atmosphere. If we come to wet corrosion, the wet corrosion is due to attack of metals by moisture and oxygen present in the atmosphere through electrochemical reactions. That is nothing but due to formation of anodic region and cathodic region. And also we can call due to formation of galvanic cells. Example, rusting of iron. So here, for the formation of anodic region and cathodic region, many factors are responsible. Based on that factor which is responsible for the formation of anodic region and cathodic region, wet corrosion classified into differential metal corrosion or galvanic corrosion, differential aeration corrosion, and stress corrosion. Let's discuss one by one. Differential metal corrosion or galvanic corrosion. Here, the name itself indicate corrosion of metal that is due to contact of different metals. Contact of different metals. Let's go through an example first. There is a screw made up of copper and the bolt made up of iron. And if you look at these two metals, iron get corroded but not copper. What is the reason for that? So if we look at the standard reduction potential value of iron minus 0.44 volt, which is less than 0.34 volt, which is for copper. We know that the metal with lower reduction potential value, it is formed as anode and undergo oxidation and undergo corrosion. And the metal which is working as cathode, which is unaffected by the corrosion. If we look at another example here, the iron, when it is in contact with the tin, then iron undergoes corrosion. That is due to formation of anodic region. That is due to low standard reduction potential value of iron. So due to higher standard reduction potential value of tin, the tin working as cathode and it is unaffected by the corrosion. So then when differential metal corrosion occurs, this type of corrosion occurs when dissimilar or different metals are in contact each other and are exposed to corrosive environment. And which metal will undergo corrosion? The metal with lower reduction potential, anodic metal, will undergo corrosion. And if we consider the reactions, the iron, it is anode, undergo oxidation, and that electron gained by the constituents present in the at the cathodic region. And another question arises here. In both the case, iron undergo corrosion, but in which case iron undergo rapid corrosion or intense corrosion? So that depends on the potential difference between the anodic and cathodic metals. Higher the potential difference between the anodic and cathodic metals, higher is the rate of corrosion at anodic metal. So if we calculate the potential difference for this case, the potential difference is equal to electrode potential value of cathode minus electrode potential value of anode. So the tin is cathode here, its value minus 0.14 minus iron anode and its value minus 0.44. The difference 0.301. And if you come to this case, the potential difference is equal to electrode potential value of cathode minus electrode potential value of anode. The cathode is copper in this case and its value plus 0.34 volt minus anode, it is iron here and its value minus 0.44 volt, and the difference is 0.78 volt. So if we observe these two values, we can say in this case the iron will undergo intense or rapid corrosion because of high potential difference value between anode and cathode metals. So this is about differential metal corrosion or galvanic corrosion. Let's discuss another type of wet corrosion, that is differential aeration corrosion. So here also we can notice difference in air responsible for formation of anodic region and cathodic region. So here if we go through this picture, when the iron rod partially immersed in water, the rod within the water exposed to less oxygen concentration and it forms as an anode and it undergo oxidation and it undergo corrosion. And the rod which is above the water line exposed to higher oxygen concentration and hence it forms cathode and it is unaffected by the corrosion. This we already discussed through electrochemical theory of corrosion by taking iron as an example. So here you can see the ship which floats on sea water for a long time. You can notice here the part of the ship inside the water, it gets corroded than the area which is exposed to atmosphere. So this is, you can consider an example for differential aeration corrosion. And another we can see here, the nail inside the wall. So inside the wall, oxygen circulation is very less, so it forms as an anodic region and it undergo oxidation and corrosion. And remaining area exposed to higher oxygen concentration and it forms cathode and it is unaffected by the corrosion. So hence, uh, differential corrosion occurs when two different parts. It is one part and this is another part. This type of corrosion occurs when two different parts of the same metal. So earlier case we discussed different metals, but here even though same metal, because of different oxygen concentration, it undergo corrosion. Here this type of corrosion occurs when two different parts of the same metal exposed to different oxygen concentration. So as I already mentioned, the part of the metal exposed to less oxygen concentration acts as anodic region and undergo corrosion, and the part of the metal exposed to higher oxygen concentration acts as cathodic region and it is unaffected by the corrosion. So the example for differential aeration corrosion we need to discuss are pitting corrosion and waterline corrosion. So this is about differential aeration corrosion. So pitting corrosion, as we discussed, it is an example for differential aeration corrosion. Differential aeration corrosion. So this type of corrosion occurs when dust or sand or oil drops or any other substances, if covered some part of the main metal, then the region below the dust acts as anode, that is due to less oxygen concentration, and it forms an anode, hence it undergo oxidation and undergo corrosion. And finally, it forms a pit. You can notice here, it forms a pit. Hence, it is called pitting corrosion. Formation of pit, that is due to formation of anodic region, that is due to less oxygen concentration below the dust or sand or any other objects cover. And the remaining area or remaining region of the metal which exposed to more oxygen concentration acts as cathodic region and it is unaffected. So the other observation is, if very small area, if covered by dust or sand or any other substances, then formation of very small anodic area and a large cathodic area, it results intense corrosion below the dust particle. Intense corrosion occurs at just below the dust particle, because I already mentioned, because here cathodic region is more, anodic area is, if it is very less, at anodic region oxidation reaction occurs and releases electron, and here due to larger cathodic region, more demand for that electron. So soon after release of electron, that cathodic region constituents will gain that electron and it will motivate further oxidation. Hence, it will increase the oxidation reaction and it means corrosion. So, and other examples like I already mentioned, part of the nail inside the wall. So again, because this part is covered with our sand or cement or something, this one. So it is covered like a dust or sand, this one, and will undergo corrosion. And window rods inside the frame, because of less oxygen concentration, suffer corrosion. And paper pin inside the paper gets corroded because of less oxygen concentration. And metal, any metals under dust undergo corrosion. So this is about pitting corrosion. Another example for differential aeration corrosion is waterline corrosion. Waterline corrosion. The waterline corrosion is an example for already mentioned differential aeration corrosion. And this type of corrosion occurs when iron or steel tank is partially filled with water for long time. For long time. So what will happen if it is partially filled? So this tank is made up of, let us assume, iron. Then the part of the tank, it is filled with water. It is, I'm talking just about inside a part of the metal. It exposed to less oxygen concentration. But part of the tank above the water line exposed to more oxygen concentration. So we know that the portion below the water line acts as anode, that is due to exposed to less oxygen and which will undergo corrosion, and the upper portion which is exposed to more oxygen acts as cathodic region and it is unaffected. The another question is in which region or area of the tank intensely corroded. So to answer for that, if we look at this part, for example, year to year, year to year, and year to year, there is not much difference in oxygen concentration. It is almost this area is exposed to uniform oxidation oxygen concentration. But if we consider this region, this area which is exposed to less oxygen concentration just below the water line, it is exposed to less oxygen concentration, but just above the water line exposed to very high concentration of oxygen. So this region just below the water line experiences huge difference in oxygen concentration. So that due to that high difference in oxygen concentration, just below the water line, we will observe intense corrosion of that iron tank. So this type of corrosion was observed in ships floating in seawater for a long time. And also the waterline corrosion is common in water lifting pipes which are under the water lifting pipes under the water. And these are the reactions occur at anodic region. Oxidation reaction of iron takes place and reduction reaction occur at cathodic region of the metal. So this is about waterline corrosion. So let's discuss the corrosion control methods. So as we discussed, the wet corrosion is mainly occurred due to formation of anodic region and cathodic region or formation of galvanic cells. If we prevent the formation of anodic region and cathodic region, we can prevent the corrosion of that metal. The corrosion can be controlled by preventing the formation of galvanic cells. That is nothing but formation of anodic region and cathodic region. How? By protecting the metal surface by corrosion environment. We should protect the metal surface from corrosion environment such as moisture and oxygen. So the choice of corrosion control method depends on factors which are responsible for that kind of corrosion. We cannot simply use all the methods for same one type of corrosion. The choice of corrosion control method depends on the factors which are responsible for corrosion of that metal. So some of the important methods commonly used to control the corrosion of metals are protective coating. By coating the base metal with any other either metals or by any other organic coatings, and cathodic protection. We know that once the metal converted into cathodic region, that region it is not affected by the corrosion. Hence, if we convert that entire metal into cathode, then we can prevent the corrosion. And design and selection of materials. The protective coating classified into inorganic coatings and organic coatings. So here, inorganic coatings again classified into metal coating and metal surface conversion coating. So here, metal coating divided into anodic metal coating and cathodic metal coating. So here, anodic metal coating is nothing but, so let us consider iron to be protected from corrosion. Then if we coat zinc over the surface of iron, then zinc, due to lower reduction potential value, it forms as anodic region and it may undergo corrosion, but not iron, so that we can prevent the corrosion of base metal iron. So cathodic metal coating, why it is called cathodic metal coating? If we coat iron metal by tin on the surface, tin has a high reduction potential value, hence it forms as cathodic region, and it will protect our main metal iron. And if you come to other part, metal surface conversion coating, we are not coating our interested metal with any other metal, just we are converting the surface metal atoms into respective oxides or compounds. That compounds or oxides will act as a barrier and it will prevent further corrosion of that metal. So that we can discuss in detail the anodizing process and also the metal coating galvanizing in later sessions. And if we come to cathodic protection, we can use two different techniques: sacrificial anode method and impressed current method. These two methods can also be discussed later. And if we come to design and selection of materials, it is not we are going to discuss in detail, but if we should not prefer like V-shaped articles, X-shaped articles, or Y-shaped articles. If we choose such designs, that will cause a stress corrosion, that will differential aeration corrosion and stress corrosion. So we should avoid it. And for example, instead of use bolts and nuts, better to go for welding. That is a better option to prevent corrosion. And we should properly place our equipments in such a way that the air should be circulated uniformly, so that we can prevent corrosion. In this way, it will help design and selection of materials to prevent corrosion. This is about some methods we can use to control corrosion. So here, anodizing of aluminum is one of the corrosion control technique. So before going to discuss anodizing of particularly aluminum, what is that anodizing? Why we need to do that? So here, anodizing is an example for metal surface conversion coating. Here, anodizing is an example for metal surface conversion coating. That means we will convert only surface of the metal into respective oxides. That metal oxide will protect the remaining metal. Okay. So anodizing is an electrolytic process of oxidation of metals, that is non-ferrous metals. What is that electrolytic process? We know that in electrochemistry, there are two types of process, like galvanic cell and electrolytic cell. So in galvanic cell, the electricity will be generated due to chemical reactions. But here in electrolytic cell, we should apply electricity to conduct chemical reactions. If we apply electricity to conduct chemical reactions, such cells are called electrolytic cells. Here also we are doing the same. So hence, anodizing means we are converting our entire metal into anode, anodizing. We are making that metal into anode. How? By connecting that metal to positive terminal of the battery. Anodizing is an electrolytic process of oxidation of metals, non-ferrous. Why it is non-ferrous? Because if we choose iron for this technique, if we convert iron into respective oxide like ferric oxide, that will not prevent further corrosion because that product does not having such properties like non-porous nature mainly. So this technique not suitable for iron, but this method mainly suitable for aluminum because aluminum oxide is the best corrosion product, will prevent further corrosion, and its alloys also. And other metals suitable for this technique are chromium, nickel, titanium, magnesium, zirconium, tantalum, etc. and also their alloys. To convert the surface of the base metal into their respective metal oxides, layer that is durable and highly corrosion resistant. Hence, it protects the metal from corrosion and also provides better adhesion for paint primers and glues than bare metals. So it will protect from the corrosion as well as it will provide best surface for painting. So that is the advantage of this technique. In this process, as I mentioned, base metal is made as anode in an electrolytic bath of suitable composition by passing direct electric current. So let's discuss in detail the process, how to carry that anodizing of aluminum. So before going to anodizing of aluminum, that metal to be anodized, here we mentioned aluminum in particular. That aluminum metal must be very clean. It is that surface of the aluminum metal must be very clean. It should be free from the dust or any other impurities. So the first step is surface preparation. That means cleaning process. You can see here there are so many tanks filled with different solvents to clean the surface. Before anodizing the aluminum metal, before anodizing this aluminum metal will be cleaned by soaking or dipping in organic solvents and later alkalis, means base solutions. Why? To remove oil, grease and other organic contaminants. We can remove oil, grease and other organic contaminants by soaking in organic solvents and later alkalis solution. So after that, that aluminum metal it will be again washed with dilute acids. So that is called pickling. That is to remove if any inorganic oxide impurities present on the surface of the aluminum, that can be removed by pickling. And later on again it is rinsed with distilled water and then drying. So this is about surface preparation part. So after this, after cleaning the aluminum metal, it will be transferred into electrolytic bath. You can see the bath here, electrolytic bath. And it is filled with the solution of oxidizing agents like 5 to 10% chromic acid or sulfuric acid. So after cleaning aluminum metal, it is transferred or dipped into the electrolytic bath filled with oxidizing agents like chromic acid, 5 to 10% chromic acid or sulfuric acid, and it is connected to positive terminal of direct current source and another negative terminal connected to the inert metal like lead. So here aluminum working as anode now, and lead it is working as cathode, and electrolytes are chromic acid or sulfuric acid, any one we can choose it. So after that, the suitable temperature of the bath should be maintained, because during this electrolysis process heat will be generated, so we should refrigerate the electrolyte solution so that we should maintain the temperature, and also we should maintain required pH to get a good layer of alumina. It depends on which electrolyte we will use it. Based on that, different pH will be maintained. And after that, the suitable electric current will be applied. What is that suitable electric voltage? That depends on how much thickness of that layer is required for us. Depends on that, the voltage will vary. So here 0 to 50 volts, it is applied slowly. That means not directly apply 50 volts. Initially they will apply lower voltage, and it start oxidation, and then you can see it forming a layer after the reaction. They will apply 0 to 50 volts or any different voltage over 30 minutes to 1 hour. They will maintain a higher voltage. Again, it's not fixed, it depends on various factors. And under these conditions, for the electrolysis reaction will occur. You can see what is the reaction occur, how this alumina formed on the surface. Here, once we apply electricity, electrolysis of sulfuric acid, let us assume as an oxidizing agent used in this case, then electrolysis of sulfuric acid will occur, and hydrogen ions at cathode, it will release as a gas. Here you can see H plus ion provided by the sulfuric acid. It will move towards cathode because electrons are available here, and it will converted into hydrogen gas, and it will evolve. And the hydroxyl ions, that is from water, that will undergo the oxidation and releases oxygen. And that oxygen will be used by the aluminum ions for the oxidation. You see, because it working as an anode, first it will undergo oxidation reaction and it form Al3+, and that ions again reacts with oxide ions from this hydroxyl and converted into aluminum oxide, that is alumina Al2O3. So due to this reaction, the surface of the metal converted into aluminum oxide or alumina. So we should stop this process when we reached required thickness of that aluminum oxide. Let us assume like a thin layer of 2 to 8 micrometer aluminum oxide is formed on the surface. So next, finally, the alumina or Al2O3 formed on the surface, it's not a completely non-porous, it's a porous, partially porous layer. To convert that porous into non-porous, we should go for another process called sealing. By heating, after reached that required thickness, should stop the process, and we should take this out and should go for sealing process. So here, by heating with boiling water or steam, and it's a process called sealing process. So during this process, the non-porous and partially porous material converted into completely non-porous. How? During sealing, Al2O3 converted into hydrated alumina. So due to that increased volume, which will occupy higher volume, and hence the pores are sealed. The pores are completely sealed. Hence it will protect completely from the corrosion. That layer will protect that inner metal, aluminum, from the corrosion. And in this stage, if they need to add some coloring agents, they can use it. and they can fill in that porous to get a required colored material. Otherwise, directly we can go for sealing process. When after this, when anodized aluminum is exposed to corrosive environment, the hydrated alumina layer on the surface acts as a protective layer, hence metal protected from corrosion. So preferably the chromic acid, they will use it because of high corrosive nature of sulfuric acid. They will use as an electrolyte here. And this is the procedure can use it for anodizing of aluminum. So let's go through some applications of anodized aluminum. You can see it's a very various applications through the picture. Because of its attractive finish and environmentally safe nature, anodized aluminum is most widely used for the production of industrial, commercial, and also domestic materials such as highly durable exteriors, roofs, curtain walls, ceilings, floors, escalators, lobbies, and staircases in commercial buildings. And also the anodized aluminum used in computer hardware, exhibit displays, and scientific instruments, and also in home appliances. And also anodized articles used as soap boxes, tiffin carriers, window frames, etc. The anodizing of aluminum technique can be used for the metals such as aluminum, magnesium, titanium, etc. To control the corrosion. So this is about some of the applications of anodized aluminum. So these are the reference materials you can go through. And I will stop the explanation. Let's go through some of the multiple choice questions covered under this session. Question number 1. When zinc connected to iron placed in corrosive environment, choose the correct effect. Option A, iron undergo corrosion first because it acts as anode. Zinc undergo corrosion first because it acts as anode. Option C, both zinc and iron are unaffected by corrosion. Option D, zinc acts as cathode and unaffected by corrosion. So if you look at these two metals, if contact each other, due to lower reduction potential value of zinc, it working as anode and undergo corrosion first. So the right answer is zinc undergo corrosion first because it acts as anode. Option B. Question number 2. Iron undergo corrosion when iron connected with tin and exposed to corrosive environment. It is an example for option A, dry corrosion, option B, stress corrosion, option C, differential aeration corrosion, option D, galvanic corrosion. So here corrosion due to contact of two different metals. So hence it is an example for galvanic corrosion or differential metal corrosion. Hence the right answer is option D. Question number 3. If part of the nail inside the wall and remaining part of the nail outside the wall, then after long time, the following observation is correct. Option A, the part of the nail outside the wall corroded more than inside. Option B, the part of the nail inside the wall corroded more than outside. Option B, both the parts of the nail equally corroded. Option D, both parts of the nail unaffected by the corrosion. So we already discussed the part of the nail inside the wall corroded more than outside because inside the wall the nail experiences are connected with very less oxygen concentration, hence that area form as an anode and undergo corrosion. Right answer is option B. Question number 4. The product formed on the surface of aluminum after anodizing of aluminum and it prevents further corrosion is option A, AlCl3, option B, Al2SO4 thrice, option C, Al2O3, option D, AlNO3 thrice. So aluminum, after anodizing, you will get alumina or aluminum oxide Al2O3 as a product, and it prevents further corrosion. Hence, the right answer is option C. Question number 5. Corrosion of metals can be controlled by option A, preventing the formation of galvanic cells, option B, by suitable protective coating, option C, by suitable design and selection of metals, option D, all the above. As we know, we can prevent the corrosion of metals using all the above 3 techniques, and the right answer is option D, all the above. So I will stop this session here, and the remaining syllabus of module 2 I will continue in next session. Thank you.